Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
Garrett Price.
How's it going?
And Jared Wackerly.
Hello.
So we're here on a Monday, of all things during the day, as I get ready to get knocked out and get penetrated on both ends. I sit here and fast. I can't wait. We had to do this a little early because in a couple hours I got to start preparing for my uninvited touches. Well, I guess technically they're invited. I'm actually paying.
Yeah, you invited them.
Yeah, I'm paying for it, actually. Please. Go as deep as you possibly can inside me.
Easy round draft.
And so today we're talking NFC North. Protect the North, as we all must know. And some interesting teams we're going to talk about today from a Dynasty fantasy football perspective, looking over these depth charts, kind of what we look at each kind of player value, whether it be this year, future. We'll hit on all these guys. I know we might as well dive right in because we got some good teams here with a lot of depth to get into. And the first one is what were we looking at, Matt?
Yeah, we're going to start with Chicago Bears, and at the quarterback position, they obviously have Caleb Williams starting. Tyson Bagent and Case Keenum are the backups. At the running back position, they have DeAndre Swift, Roschon Johnson, Kyle Monangai, Travis Homer is there, a couple other guys that don't really matter. At the tight end position, Colston Loveland, the first-round draft pick this past season. Cole Kmet, who obviously is the established kind of starter there. They got Durham Smythe over from Miami, more of a blocking specialist. And then just a couple of no-name guys as well. At the wide receiver position, they have Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Luther Burden III, Olamaye Zacharias. Is that how you say it? Did I get that one right?
I think it's
Zacchaeus. Nailed it. Tyler Scott is also there. Devin Duvernay. That's about it. Miles Boykin. Rich, your dude from a million years ago, is still on this team, and that's it, guys.
Yeah, I mean, from a talent standpoint, there's a lot of assets here that you're extremely intrigued in. Starting the quarterback position, Caleb Williams, the number one overall pick. If they could take that back, they would take Jayden Daniels, but that's neither here nor there. Reports out of camp so far, Caleb Williams has been up and down, which is somewhat discouraging to even hear, where like you hear Jayden Daniels is absolutely lighting it up and looking like he's better than he was last year. He's my secret. He's my I had a bet for odds. Jayden Daniels is my odds to bet for MVP of the NFL. But here we are. And Caleb Williams, they really upgraded the offensive line for him. They brought in, Joe Thuney, who's a great guard. They brought out the number one center, I think, out of Atlanta, Dahlman. They signed Jonah Jackson from the Rams. So for me, they've really put Caleb Williams in the best position to win here. They go out and they draft two offensive weapons, one with the 10th overall pick and a tight end in Colston Loveland, and the second in the second round in Luther Burden. And Luther Burden setting up and down camp. But for Caleb, guys, like, where are you at from a super flex standpoint? Does the news, it's way too early to be concerned about, like, obviously we have a new head coach here, new offensive system, and we know Ben Johnson runs a pretty intricate playbook. We don't know how much they're just going to drop onto Caleb Williams right away. Are you leaning towards if there's any worry about Caleb Williams? Hey, man, this is a good window, right? Maybe there's a chance to go out and buy Caleb Williams in this Ben Johnson offense, or after not really like taking lighting up the field last year, are you looking to still sell a quarterback who should be pretty insulated in Superflex leagues? Where are you guys at? Where are you guys at on Caleb?
Yeah, this one's tough for me because I was concerned with some of the stuff that I saw on tape, like coming into the NFL, just a lot of off script stuff and not a very strong platform. He was kind of throwing off balance quite a bit. And we did see a bit of that last year, and now he's having a similar up and down kind of camp as well. So I'm a little concerned about Caleb Williams. This is from a fantasy or dynasty perspective. Obviously, once Ben Johnson gets hired here, he's an offensive guru type of guy. Caleb Williams then fails, you could see a kind of a big drop off in his value if he kind of didn't live up to expectations his rookie year. Jayden Daniels, the guy who's picked right after him in most drafts, kind of skyrockets and does amazing in year one and year two. Like, this is obviously a made up scenario. Caleb Williams or Jayden Daniels, could fall on his face and Caleb Williams could take off. But if he doesn't do well this year, there could be a bit of a drop off in his value. So I think, there is concern in my brain. And if anyone's like me, that could also be on their brains, I guess. So yeah, a little bit. I
shaky. Would say I think you're a little bit more concerned than I am at this point. We see this often out of more complex offenses. I remember hearing how bad Patrick Mahomes looked in Andy Reid's offense in training camp, and it was, doom and gloom, and we missed on Deshaun Watson and Mitchell Trubisky, and, they got those guys, and we got Pat Mahomes, and, and then Pat Mahomes goes out and is one of the greatest of all time. Now, I'm not saying Caleb was going to go out and have that type of rocket ship to where he's, one of the best in the league. But I do still believe in the talent. And you look at all of the pieces that they put around him, he's very well insulated. And this isn't a team that looks like they're going to be a 5-win or less team. So I'm not expecting a high draft pick this year. So I just don't see any scenario where Caleb Williams isn't the starter again in 2026, no matter what. And he gets a full year there to prove it to. So he's really got 2 years of insulation in my mind. And there's just so much around him that it depends on the price that you're having to pay for him. If you're having to pay, quarterback 5-6 type prices,
QB8 probably early in ADP. In our ADP right now, he's QB8 off the board,
which I'm totally fine in that range. That's what I was going to say. 8 to 10. I'm totally fine paying those types of prices for Caleb Williams. So I think I'm okay with where he's at right now.
I love the system.
What would those prices be? Caleb, you're talking quarterback 8. What would a price be for that? Do you think?
There's trades right now for 2 firsts and Jackson Dart for Caleb Williams, probably around that range.
And that's what I'm thinking. Like, that's what I'm worried about, that kind of price going down, where you're not getting basically 3 first rounders for Caleb Williams anymore. If he fails again this year, it might drop. That might come down to 2 first rounders or a first and a second, depending on the league. That's only, like, I still think he's fine. Like, the floor is not going to, completely bottom out here or drop out on a guy like Caleb Williams. But I do feel like you could see a drop in that value. And that's the only thing that, that I'm concerned about anyway.
Yeah, it's a world you live in playing Dynasty. And to me, I think Caleb Williams is totally, a lot of times when you're in those kind of situations, you have to weigh the risk and the reward, right? Or like the risk and the return is probably a better way to say it, right? Like you said, Jackson Dart and 2 firsts. That immediately, that 1 first, I gotta try and replace Caleb Williams with. So it's really just a first. Go ahead and give me the 23-year-old quarterback that's insulated for a couple of years, that has one of the best offensive coordinators in the league now, coach him up on offense, and a ton of weapons around him. To have any quarterback to have Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland around him, that is an unbelievable scenario to be in. And there might be some worry, but even if he finishes, say Caleb Williams just turns into, a mid-range quarterback 18, it's still a very high-end asset when it comes to Dynasty Fantasy Football. So to me, I feel pretty good about my Caleb Williams shares. Not as good as when I drafted him. Luckily for me, I said if there's a couple leagues where I had the 1-1, I said, hey, in one league, I'm going to take Jayden Daniels. Another league, I'm going to take Caleb Williams. Like, that's how much I believed in Jalen at the time. So I feel way better about thank God I did make that move, right? Like, it's again, people are like, well, why do you watch tape? Why do you study these rookies? Why can't you just go off a chart? Well, every chart's going to tell you Caleb Williams was the 1-1. When you watch the tape, you're like, oh, wow, I could really give me a piece of this Jayden Daniels ace as well. So for me, Caleb Williams is, I think, QB8 right around there. Like, I think it's where he belongs for the upside. But if you want to pivot to like a Brock Purdy, right? Like, and get a little bit older, but like maybe get a little bit plus on top, I'm okay with doing that. But I'm not trying to get out from under Caleb Williams at all.
Trevor Lawrence is going like QB 18. I mean, is there any other quarterbacks you'd be looking to tier down to possibly? Jordan Love's at ADP ranked 39. Caleb Williams is at 23. Trevor Lawrence is 57 overall.
Those are 2 great examples, Jared, of guys I'm willing to tier down. Again, not actively trying to, but like I mean, if you're living in a tier like that, if your plus is significant, if you need a running back, you need a receiver, you want some extra draft capital, like I'm totally comfortable moving down when it's just a couple of years from Jordan Love to Trevor Lawrence and still give me a really big window. One of those guys, and also number 1 overall pick, Jordan Love, a first round pick. So for me, I have no problem tearing down from there. I mean, listen, for the most part, when you play Dynasty, tearing down is one of the most savvy moves you can make playing the game, right? Like,
Yep.
Like looking at players from an age standpoint, take the names out of it. From an age standpoint, 2 numbers you should be looking at: age and points per game, right? Like, if you can equalize those 2 numbers, which aren't too far off, but then get the plus on top, really offsets your roster. Because what are we trying to do in Dynasty? We're trying to build a complete roster that could take us to the Dynasty Fantasy Football Championship. One player is not going to get it done. So on a points per game basis and age, if I can pivot off of Caleb Williams for a guy like that, and my plus can make my starting roster stronger, then yes, but definitely not like something I'm actively trying to move. And like Garrett said, not overreacting after we're in camp for 2 weeks and like, oh, he's a little slow to develop a new system. It's why you always get worried about new coaches. Some hit the ground running, but like it's a lot like to learn and transition to. It's why these quarterbacks that have constant new changes, a guy just like Trevor Lawrence, who year in, year out has nothing to do with but like misery and disarray around him. Like it's hard for those guys to succeed year in and year out when you don't have the comfort of a system that you can get better in every single year. And it really just becomes like it's just a fluid motion for you running that offense.
There's a couple deals of Jordan Love in a second for Caleb Williams that went down the last week.
I'd want a tad more.
Yeah, too.
Because I just think they've really moved, especially with Josh Jacobs, and we'll cover that today. They've moved to a much more run heavy scheme. And so I just don't know if the volume's going to be there, but we'll see with Caleb Williams as well. That's another team that likes to run the ball a lot. So maybe it doesn't end up being super far off, but for right now, I don't know if a second is enough to persuade me off Caleb.
I wouldn't even put any weight on that run-heavy scheme after last year. I think getting Josh Jacobs didn't help the system, but with Jordan Love banged up last year, they kind of had no choice but to run the ball a little bit more. That's why I don't put a lot of weight into Jordan Love's numbers being down a little bit as well. A lot of it has to do with the injury, right? Like, and just being aware. Like, it wasn't like everything just changed. Jordan Love was hurt all year long. And that kind of, so I don't put a ton of weight into that. Even like when I try to use the stats of like, oh, he only threw the receivers 48% of the time and 25% went to the tight ends. And then another 15% went to there. So anyways, we're talking about Caleb Williams. We'll get there.
Sorry.
So QB8, obviously the receiving room, like now the weapons he's throwing to, right? This is where it kind of gets a little curious for a lot of people and they might not know where to stand because you went from, hey man, DJ Moore goes in this offense, great. Then they draft Rome Odunze with a top 10 pick, and then they draft Colston Loveland with the 10th overall pick. Then bring Luther Burden. So this room goes to a very crowded situation after even the release of Keenan Allen. For me, I think this is probably the lowest dip you're going to be able to buy Rome Odunze in a while because I do think amongst all those weapons there, and that's the tight ends, 2 competent tight ends, a very good receiver in DJ Moore, who I'm super excited about with like they're literally trying to scheme ways to get the ball in his hands, even behind the line of scrimmage. I think Rome Odunze is going to be the clear-cut number 1 X in this offense, and I think that holds a lot of weight, a lot of benefit, just like we saw Amon-Ra St. Brown and Ben Johnson's offense year in, year out, still being an elite fantasy football weapon. And that even when Jameson Williams was on the field, who was a top 12 NFL draft pick, right? To still have, Sam LaPorta, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery on the field, Amon-Ra was still able to produce at a high level. I think Rome Odunze is that Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think right now, going off the board is like wide receiver 19, somewhere around those. I can't remember what the ADP was. Like,
yep,
that's a really good value. That's a really good value on a guy entering year 2, ready to take a big step up in a new offense as well. Even if it's not immediate, like I'm definitely buying a Rome Odunze dip. I'm not out on DJ Moore. It's encouraging to hear that Luther Burden's getting lectured by Ben Johnson, getting pulled in and out of plays, kind of really let him know like, hey, there's no BS going around here. You know what I mean? Like, this is how we're going to run this NFL team, and you're either in or you're out. And if you're out, you're on the sideline. So for me, the number 1 asset I want on here out of everybody in Superflex leagues, outside of Caleb Williams, obviously, is Rome Odunze. okay with having DJ Moore still on my roster because I still think he can eat. I don't know where you guys fill in with the rest of these from a dynasty standpoint going forward, not just in 2025, but moving forward.
I mean, obviously Rome Odunze, stud. You know what I mean? DJ Moore is the one that is a little bit tricky for me to nail down. I don't know if it's good or bad. I mean, you're talking about like them having to manufacture touches for him. I don't know what that really means to me. I'm having a hard time processing that one. Like, why is he not just out there running routes and getting open? Like, why do they have to manufacture touches for DJ Moore, a 28-year-old established guy?
He's still running routes. I mean, he had an amazing catch the other day in practice, like where he beat the defender on a quick inside slant and full extension catch. It just that said they're not just, that's not the whole scheme. Ben Johnson just came out and said, they're like, oh, we saw you got some touches for DJ Moore behind the line of scrimmage even. And Ben Johnson's quote was like, we understand that DJ Moore is absolutely electric with the football in his hand and he makes things happen. So like, obviously like it's on me to find ways to get balls in the hand.
Find creative ways. Okay. So they're just, yeah. Exactly. That one was,
it had nothing to do with his route runner. And they're just aware of how electric he is with the ball in his hand. And they're just trying to figure out ways to scheme him with the ball. And we know Ben Johnson is unbelievably creative in that way. So like early in camp, of course, they're going to be looking at stuff in the playbook and somebody sees it. It just could be like one weird play, they might run like the play where like Jared Goff pretends to trip just 1 week where this stuff comes up. Ben Johnson's innovative every single week on this offense.
There's a clip of DJ Moore lining up at running back from practice, taking a handoff. So I think that's kind of what Rich is saying.
Sure. No, I get it. I don't know. It feels weird to me when out of the blue, a new coaching staff comes in, they start doing weird hybrid stuff with a guy that really hasn't had a huge past, in that kind of role. Like, how do they view this guy is kind of what I went to in my brain. And to switch gears here on the Luther Burden, I hadn't heard the stuff about him getting like pulled aside and lectured. Is there anything juicy in there or is it just like, hey, like this is how this is working, like you weren't in the right place here, like that normal kind of stuff like that a rookie needs to go through, or was it something a little juicier than that?
I think it was more like not doing your job like correctly.
And it might be just a complex scheme that he's having a hard time picking up.
Sure, he's a rookie.
Yeah, exactly. No big deal there.
For me, I want to go back to Rome Odunze real quick, Rich, because I think you were spot on with this is, there's times in this game where you have to take some gambles. And I know what you saw last year out of Rome Odunze was not enough for you to be overly excited about him. But when I went through and did my projections, I do project Rome Odunze ahead of DJ Moore this season. I have Rome Odunze at wide receiver 21 on the year. And so if he could turn in a wide receiver 2 type season, I think a lot of people would be very excited about that. And that would kind of show that, yes, he is kind of progressing in the right direction. Whereas I have DJ Moore at wide receiver 32. So, about an 11 spot gap there between the two players. I think DJ Moore is still going to be a very good asset, but I do think overall this offense is going to be a little bit frustrating in the passing game because even at wide receiver 21 for Rome Odunze, there's going to be weeks where it was a Luther Burden game, or it was a DJ Moore game, or it was a Colston Loveland game, or heaven forbid a Cole Kmet comes in and steals 2 touchdowns in a game, and it's frustrating, for fantasy owners. So I do think this passing game is going to be a little bit frustrating for a lot of people. And so if I'm going to push all the chips in somewhere, I'm going to push it in on a guy like Rome Odunze, who I think is here for the long term, where DJ Moore has a contract in a situation where it wouldn't be super hard to get out from underneath him in the near future if all the other pieces work out like you would expect.
Yeah, and it's if you want to play the long game in Dynasty, like Garrett said, like the risk, like, and you want to play it safe and use your first round pick every year to make picks and, go left and go right when the light turns, that's fine. But like, if you want to be a savvy owner and you really want to build a super team, like it's really kind of like finding windows and opportunities. And Rome right now is in that window of opportunity to kind of go out and get, definitely if you have like a main stay receiver, and definitely you have a 26 first to throw behind them. I say it all the time. What looks like an overpay today is underpay tomorrow, and Rome fits in that category. And this is risky. Everything's a risk. Everything is a risk. Anybody could fall off. Anybody get hurt. We see these people that show up like last year. We were sure as shit that Marvin Harrison was going to come in last year and just dominate as a rookie, right? Doesn't even finish as a top 18 fantasy wide receiver. Doesn't break 1,000 yards, but we see all these other guys take a big step forward, like Lad McConkey and Brian Thomas on top of Luke Neighbors. Like, these are all risks. Nothing's a for sure thing. But Rome's got the offensive mind, the young quarterback, the draft capital, the other weapons to take away from him. So much behind him to push him into that wide receiver one range. And when we see guys like that present themselves, like, these are the perfect kind of guys that I like to get, like, and a lot of times people break out in year 2, just the way it is. It's not like a year 1. Same thing like a Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, they had these opportunities. Everybody wants them to come out and dominate. And what Rome brings is that elite contested catch, right? Ability. He did in college. He even showed last year as a rookie that he is, a very good contested catch player. Rome's good with the ball in his hands. He was 29th in the league in yards after catch per reception last year on a little bit of opportunity he had. He was second in contested catch rate. So for me, like, I love to find young, talented receivers that I could buy any kind of dip on. Doesn't mean they're free when you say there's dips, but like, from going where he got drafted, which was right after Malik Neighbors, probably people took him ahead of Malik Neighbors, a same player that in Matt Harmon's model, he had ranked slightly ahead of Malik Neighbors in Rome Odunze. And I remember going back to tape, I'm not afraid to say it. Like, I was wrong, but like, I liked Rome's tape a slight hair better than Malik, just a slight hair. I was wrong. Obviously that's clearly wrong today. I would take Malik over Marvin and Rome today, but that's yesterday. If we all go back and live in the past, we'd all have elite dynasty rosters. So to me, to get a player like that who just doesn't produce in year 1, I think is a very good opportunity. I'm going to hold back the reins a little bit on the tight ends, what I kind of expect out of them, like Colston Loveland year 1. I think he's going to need DJ Moore to kind of leave the window before he can get a little bit more involved in this offense. And obviously, your dream boat, Cole Kmet, Garrett, is most likely dead in the water until he finds a new team.
Yeah, he has no fantasy value, but he's going to be annoying for fantasy football.
That's what I was going to say.
He's going to take some stuff.
He's on the roster this year, no matter what. They can get out from underneath that contract after this year, which I think is a perfect transition year for a guy like Colston Loveland, right? The guy that came in injured, he's just getting kind of ramped up now with the shoulder. Having a guy like Cole Kmet ahead of him, kind of show him how to become a professional. Meanwhile, Cole Kmet can kind of wow here and there on some nice plays, and I think people can get excited for him for year 2. But before we switch gears onto our next team, I did want to mention
we still got to cover running backs.
Oh, we still have to cover running backs. Forgot about that. Before we switch gears to running backs, then I do want to touch real quick on the DJ Moore contract. He's got one of these goofy contracts. You Garrett, mentioned they can kind of get out from underneath him pretty easily. He's got one of these. He's got $23 million worth of 2026 guaranteed on the fifth day of 2025, and then another 15.5 of 2027 guarantees on the fifth day of,
so it's gonna be
the third day of 2026. So he's not like a guy that can get shunted to the side very easily, unless they just pay him and get rid of him. So he might be an annoying guy in this whole equation as well for the wide receivers for a few more years anyway, 2025, 2026, and 2027. So DJ Moore's not going away anytime soon. So let's move on to those running backs, right? Sorry.
Which again, could be another possible dip buy, right? Another value in DJ Moore. The emergence of Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. This is, like Matt said, he's got the contract security. Could be the trade candidate down the road, but contract security, and the fact that they are trying to scheme ways to get the ball in his hands. Somebody who's consistently been a very safe wide receiver too, with a one wide receiver 1 year. Could be another very good buy in Dynasty.
Yeah, let's move on to the running backs here. DeAndre Swift's obviously the guy that most people expect to be the lead back, but we've seen Swift over the course of his career share time often with other running backs, which is not foreign to what Ben Johnson does, and he has multiple running backs involved typically in his system. So I think we all expect Swift to be involved. I think some maybe a little bit more heavily than others, but I think the more interesting conversation is there another running back involved? And if so, is that going to be Roschon Johnson or is it going to be Kyle Monangai?
That is the $1 million question, right? That's what everyone's worried about or wondering about, hemming and hawing about, so to speak. Obviously, Swift is going to probably get a lot of that passing down work. I think he kind of profiles as that kind of guy, and the other two are more bangers. So who the heck knows? I mean, obviously Monangai is the guy that was drafted by these people that are here, kind of the new coaching staff. So if I had to bet my money, it would be on a guy like Monangai, who, from all reports, has been looking pretty solid in camp as well, over a guy like Roschon, who kind of flashes here and there, but has never been anything more than a backup. Even in college, he was nothing more than a backup. So that's where I put my money. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's had 2 seasons to kind of show what he can do, and just never really took a hold of his opportunity there. And of course, we're very high on Monangai over here as a podcast. Jared and I, looking at our nerd score, we had him as our 8th ranked running back, which obviously on draft day, we're like, well, crap, he went to the 7th round. Like, that sucks.
Then he went to the Bears.
But then he went to the Bears, and we're like, okay,
he has life.
Maybe there's something here. And as camp has gone, a lot of people singing his praises, and specifically just recently, Ben Johnson came out yesterday, and he was talking specifically about this guy. He said, "I'm very pleased with where he's at. I think he's a guy we're going to be able to trust this fall." So if he's already talking about using a guy that's a 7th round pick, that quote really helped make me more confident in my Kyle Monangai shares. And even if it's not day one, Roschon gets a few more touches in week 1 than he does or whatever, I think this is a guy that if he continues to prove himself, that he's going to start to take a chunk of this role by end of season.
Yeah, there's a lot of names out there as running back 2s of rookies that people are super stoked about and getting excited about. And ones you're going to hear about, like obviously with the Zach Moss news, Taj Brooks, right? Jarquez Hunter, DJ Giddens getting some run there behind Jonathan Taylor. And a lot of these, what's weird is like all these people are hearing, like DJ Giddens right now getting a lot of run behind Jonathan Taylor, Jarquez Hunter, behind Kyron Williams out there. A lot of these guys have like way more secure running backs ahead of them, proven running backs, where you have DeAndre Swift coming in here, smaller running back, still hasn't been proven to be the guy, to a system where we know that coach likes to run a 2 running back system. And it works. It works at a high level for fantasy. Again, I know I hate going back to the Lions, but that's where Ben Johnson come from. So that's where the most proven to put in is where he runs his offense. And he ran that with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And David Montgomery has been a very startable running back, despite Jahmyr Gibbs being a top 3 fantasy football running back. Outside of that, we look at a guy like David Montgomery, who missed 3 games last year, still finishes running back 17. And on points per game, he was still running back 13. So this can work. A guy like Kyle Monangai, who is on nobody's radar for the most part, amongst all these weapons, could find a role. Definitely if Caleb Williams has a little bit, slow times picking up the offense, where he might have to rely on the run a little bit, which again, this offense could do. Kyle Monangai could be a sneaky guy that can give you low end RB2 numbers that comes out of nowhere. And he's the guy that nobody else is talking about right now amongst all these rookie running backs. It's Taj Brooks, it's Dylan Sampson, it's Jarquez Hunter, DJ Giddens. Like there's so many other guys that people are talking about outside of Kyle Monangai who could have a role here. And that what's nice about it too is you don't have to say, well, it depends on what DeAndre Swift does. DeAndre Swift has holds no merit here to where like what Kyle Monangai could bring to the table at all.
It's just him beating out Roschon, and Roschon really hasn't established himself. So I think that's to your point, Rich. I think he is a nice number 2 running back on his own team to go out and get and expect some sort of fantasy production from this year.
Yeah, excited for that one. So,
yep.
All
right, so let's move on to the Detroit Lions, right? So at quarterback, we have Jared Goff, Hendon Hooker, and Kyle Allen. At running back, we have Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Craig Reynolds, Sione Vaki. How do you say the guy's last name? Vaki. Vaki. Sam LaPorta at tight end, Brock Wright. Really no one else of note there. At the wide receiver position, we have Tim Patrick, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Isaac Tesla, Khalif Raymond. That's really about it on the back end of that one for relevant players. Tesla looked good though, or Tesla. How are they saying that? How are they pronouncing that? Tesla.
You said it right the first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. I've heard it like 2 different ways, so I just wanted to make sure I was saying it right. But he looked good in that preseason game.
You did. He looked really good. Starting at the quarterback position here, Jared Goff, I don't think there's really much to go over. The only like two small notes would be they did lose their all-pro center Frank Ragnow, which could hinder some things a little bit. And of course they lost Ben Johnson. So if you lose an offensive mind like Ben Johnson, could hinder things. But he's still, I mean, he was a mid-range quarterback 1 last year. So Jared Goff was a very, very good asset to have. I think it's safe to like assume a 5 to 10% drop off because of those two things. But I still think we're looking at very likely a quarterback 1 and still a very efficient offense, just maybe not the hyper efficient offense that we had last year.
I mean, luckily they stayed in-house for the offensive coordinator, and it was, I believe, the quarterback coach, right, last year that got bumped up to offensive coordinator. So maybe there won't be that much of a drop off. It sounds like they're tweaking things a little bit. If you listen to guys like Jameson Williams, as far as just getting more routes run for different kinds of routes, more variety for the wide receivers. But it sounds like that's going to be a pretty stable situation. So 5% is fine. I don't know, 5, 10% might be 10 might feel a little bit high for me, but 5, I think is fine for a drop off just because we don't know what we don't know yet. Right. We don't know if if he's going to be more aggressive, if it's going to be pretty similar or what.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, and Jared Goff and Ben Johnson worked together a lot, so they communicated very well. So I think this offense is just going to keep transition, keep humming. Starting at the quarterback position, like you said, Garrett, Jared Goff is a great value in Dynasty. Putting in these quarterback 1 years, just going over the age of 30, he's the typical kind of player that's going to play for at least another 6-7 years, right? Like he's got some security. Like he's way more secure in my eyes than a guy like Tua Tagovailoa, right? Or I feel, even though from a health standpoint, I feel more comfortable, honestly, with a guy like Jared Goff over Dak Prescott, something along those lines. So to me, I'm a big Jared Goff fan for when it comes to value. I think when it comes to startups, Jared Goff's a perfect guy to attack these positional players early and then grab your one elite young quarterback and then pivot back for a guy like Jared Goff. I said you get 6 more years of good quality quarterback play, whether it be quarterback 1 to quarterback 16 range, like elite production for 6 years. That's a lifetime in Dynasty. Like you have so much time to go ahead and find your other quarterback, make moves, and pivot off a guy like that. So really good value. Enough support around him. One of the best offensive lines in the NFL. 2 dynamic running backs. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, another running back, a receiver we don't need to talk about, an elite asset, and a guy that probably goes really good value as well right now, Jameson Williams, right? Like, why did we see Sam LaPorta take a step back last year? It wasn't because he was like a bad tight end all of a sudden. It just came down to targets. Like his targets went from 7.1 per game to 5.2. So that's 2 targets per game. So that's an easy way to come out from being quarterback tight end 1 to like tight end 5, which he finished at the end of the year like as a good tight end 1. He saw a slight uptick in his targets, not much, but the reason that happened was because of Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams took a step up in this offense and became the clear-cut number 2 target in this offense. And Jameson Williams, when he came on the draft, was an extremely young player who's had to deal with some injuries. But we have to remember, like he was in that mix of the Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams. Like he was a top 13 pick, top 12 pick, Jameson Williams, somewhere around there, like 13, 14.
Well, I will check on that. It was 12th. Yep.
12th. Yeah. So he went ahead of like Olave at the time. And he's a very young, dynamic weapon who's a number 2 target in this offense, a great upside value. He's coming off a year last year. We saw 91 targets, number 2 on the team, like I said. So another guy who offers like a lot of upside that we don't know where his clear path is for the future, right? Is it still going to be in the Lions? Is he a trade candidate? Can he go somewhere else and be the clear cut number 1? Speed, hands, agility, already showing out in camp early. Obviously health is a question for Jameson Williams, but he's young enough where it's not like a long-term concern. Definitely after last year, getting through the year mostly upright. For me, I think when I look at this team, obviously, when it comes to Amon, clear-cut, elite top 8 Dynasty wide receiver. Jared Goff, we talked about value. I think Sam LaPorta, even despite the down year last year, is still like in that top 5, like outside of the 2 elite guys, but he's in that tier 2, right? The Hawkinsons, LaPortas. I would throw Kincaid in there just out of upside. That's just me, but I'm a dirty birdie. So for me, I think this team is, for a team that's known to be a dynamic offense, I think there is some really good value here in a guy like Jared Goff and throwing Jameson Williams. Like, is anybody else like excited? Like when we hear names about like Josh Downs, like everybody's all in on Josh Downs. Like he's the sneaky guy who's no longer sneaky. I think Jameson Williams fits the bill of being a more of a sneaky upside guy, value in Dynasty amongst a lot of the other names out there. Where do you guys stand on Jameson Williams as a Dynasty asset right now?
Listen, I think he's ascending because, he came in obviously top 12 and really fell off. He was injured his first year, and then there was the suspensions and all that kind of stuff. He really got off to a couple of false starts here in the NFL. And now I think last year, obviously he cracked 1,000 yards, just barely 1,001. But he did that on only 58 receptions. So the guy is hyper, I guess, explosive, and he's a big play guy, which I think is always going to bake in a little bit of inconsistency, because when he doesn't make the huge catches, he is going to have some down weeks. I mean, but there's talk, if you listen to him, that he's going to be having kind of a more diverse route tree this year as opposed to years past. So maybe this does start to level off a bit, and then that's when we could really see this guy's value take off. If he starts becoming more of a consistent kind of all-around wide receiver as opposed to just a big play guy, then we could really see a nice bump in his value. But for now, I think he's already gone up compared to what he has been in years past.
Yeah, wide receiver 26 on points per game basis with his 14-1. We go weeks 1 through 18. Did miss a couple games there, but you're right. It's like, again, chasing upside. But even those numbers, right? Like being a wide receiver 26, right around there, low, like high-end wide receiver 3, which is where he's kind of going.
His
right?
ADP
So that's
is wide receiver 28 right now.
28. So he's getting
that's his ADP.
So his ADP,
yep.
Yeah, his ADP lines up with what like his production, essentially his value. Like, and my question was like, can you guys see Jameson Williams entering that clear-cut wide receiver 2 role? And listen, it's a tough room to fill. There's a ton of young talent at receiver right now. So like saying you're a top 24 receiver, which like, oh yeah, top 24. When there's 32 teams, like Naman's already one of those, like that's a tough room to get into. That's a tough club, right? That the venture in, because there's probably 15 guys alone that we think could easily be wide receiver 1s, and there's only room for 12 of those.
Yeah. Something else that's kind of interesting about Jameson Williams that helps him a little bit in my eyes is when you look at a team with how they are on the salary cap overall. This is one of the teams that's done an incredible job overall managing the salary cap. Actually, right now they have the second most for this season. So that was going to be my big concern was, okay, will they be able to afford to re-sign this guy after this year? Because they drafted somebody in Isaac Tesla that could profile as a similar type of player. So is this the replacement? And my argument would probably be no. With how much money they have Jared Goff under contract for at least a couple more seasons, I believe.
2028 is his last year on that deal.
Yeah, so we've got plenty of time on Jared Goff. Aiden Hutchinson will get his, but right now they're $50-some million under the cap. So they have plenty of room to sign another big-name player like a Jameson Williams. So assuming he performs, there is definitely a clear path to stay with this team and stay in this good ecosystem.
So we feel pretty comfortable, like wide receiver 28 seems about right. I think it's definitely about right.
I think it's right. Yeah, I think that is about right. I've always liked Jameson Williams from a talent standpoint. I think he couldn't really get out of his own way to start his career, but he seems to have cleared all that kind of stuff up. And if he starts adding to his wide receiver route running repertoire, I think he certainly has the talent to outperform wide receiver 28 numbers, even as the second guy in this offense. I think this offense is also potent enough to have two guys that are both wide receiver 2s and higher. So I think there's definitely some room. If you're going out to get Jameson Williams, to have his value increase. So I like Jameson Williams as a whole.
All right. So overall, sexy dynasty team.
Definitely.
All right, before we go on to our next team, I got to tell you about our friends over at FastDraft and their rabbit tournament they're going on. It's again, this is such a good tournament, with the 15 roster spots, start 8 players, full PPR, total point scoring, and only 10 teams per draft. That goes super fast because it's fast draft. So you only get the 20-second clock. So these drafts can cruise by within 20 minutes. But what I love about it is that, with a new platform, you have way more opportunity for success, right? Less competition of the sharks, and you get opportunities like this. It's rake free, which means you're going to get the best return on your investment when it comes to these kind of leagues where they're not taking any rake whatsoever. So you get in there, you play some best ball. We're running out of time for best ball drafts for a full season, right? Like, it's already August. Like, we're here. Like, the NFL season starts next month. We're a month away from all these, everything we work towards counting for real. We're playing some corn in the intro. I'm excited for that. But if you want to get that last couple drafts in, that best ball itch, FastDraft is the place for you. And right now, if you use that promo code NERDS when you sign up at FastDraft, they're going to match your deposit not only up to 100%, up to $50, but they're also going to help give you back to make this Dynasty season a little bit easier for you and help you give you a better chance to dominate. They're going to give you a full year access to the Nerd Herd. That's right. You're going to get access to the Dynasty Jam, the app, the #1 app out there today. When it comes to Dynasty, it's going to put you in position to have all our off-season content, access to Dynasty Nerds Film Room, extra podcasts and Nerd Score, everything you need to dominate your league for the next 365 days. And all you got to do is make a $10 deposit and play in a game. That's a big thing. You got to deposit and play in a game. If you're already a Nerd Herd member, no worry. A ton of you guys have been taking the opportunity to sign up here too and play on a dope platform. We've been sending you guys gift certificates to the merch store. Good enough to get you a free shirt or heavily discounted anything else you want out there. So check them out. Fast Draft, download the app or go to draftfaster.com. Use that promo code NERDS and let's dominate this rabbit together, folks.
All right. And don't forget about myffpc.com. That's right. FFPC is the best place to go play those season-long Dynasty leagues. Head on over there. You can play in small tournaments, $35 startup cost for your team, or teams that are like $1,000, even $2,000 or more dollars over at myffpc.com. They have a ton of unique formats. They've got some IDP stuff, and you don't have to worry about the league folding. Everything is safe and secure. So when you play Dynasty Fantasy Football, you can have peace of mind that, yes, I will get my payout if I do well. I don't have to worry about this owner running off with my money. Everything is safe and secure when they handle it over at myffpc.com. Use the promo code NERDS. If you use that, it's going to give you $25 off your entry fee. And yes, I know for some of you ballers out there, you're like, well, $25 if I'm doing $1,000 league, that's not much. Yeah, but you know what? You just bought yourself 2 Taco Bell meals, so you're welcome. All right, so head over to myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. Use promo code NERDS.
My FFPC read today brought to you by Taco Bell.
Look, if Taco Bell ever sponsors us, I will lose my mind.
Yes.
They won't even have to give me money, just credit.
Should reach out to them.
A local establishment.
Just DoorDash Garrett food, and he'll
Yes.
pimp your stuff for sure.
Amen.
All right, so let's move on to the next team here. Green Bay Packers are up next, and obviously at quarterback they have Jordan Love, Malik Willis, Sean Clifford, some other guy that I've never heard of, and I'm not going to read his name. At running back they have Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson, MarShawn Lloyd, and Chris Brooks. And they do also have Israel Abanikanda. That rolls off the tongue weird. At tight end, they got Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, and a bunch of other guys that really aren't fantasy relevant. And at wide receiver, they have Romeo Doubs, Matthew Golden, Jayden Reed, Savion Williams, Christian Watson, Ontavian Wicks, Malik Heath. I mean, there's just a ton of guys. Mecole Hardman's on this team. They really are like, they're deep at this position. It's ridiculous. So let's get into it.
All right, before we get into any of this, all right, do you think there is a single receiver that has over 900 yards on this team this year?
No.
I think the only one that has a shot is Jayden Reed.
Agreed. I think Jayden Reed's the guy that could get there.
I think this is going to be, I remember saying it last year during the show, and I'm just going to echo it again this year. Good luck at wide receiver if you need somebody for this season, because it's going to be a dart throw season-wise, but I even think week to week, it's going to be a complete dart throw as to who's getting the targets that week, who has a big week, because you throw in guys like Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave into this already really deep wide receiver core. It's just going to be really hard to know. Eventually, I do think they get this thinned out a little bit and we'll have some better indications. And obviously some of the guys like Reed and Matthew Golden, who they just drafted in the first round, have the best shot at it. But right now I just have a hard time investing in any Green Bay wide receiver because it's just going to be absolutely maddening.
With that in mind, the thinned out part, let me go just real quick, because Romeo Doubs,
Sure.
Christian Watson, Mecole Hardman, Malik Heath, all four of those guys are in the last year of their deals. And just the fact that we're talking about four guys that are, Malik Heath, set him to the side, three guys that we've heard of and that have been kind of, on fantasy radars that are on the last year of their deal, just says how much depth they have here. And one of these guys could definitely be dealt. I know we talked about this when we were talking about the Steelers and kind of guys that Aaron Rodgers has had crossover with, and Doubs and Watson were both there with Aaron Rodgers. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those two guys gets shipped off towards the end of camp, as long as they're both healthy. Obviously Watson is working his way back from injury, but they just have too many guys. They can't roster all these guys. And with all those guys that I mentioned in the last year of their deal, they're going to have to make some kind of move. If I'm a pro personnel guy in the NFL and I'm looking for wide receivers, like I'm sure the Steelers are, because there's been lots of rumors that they wanted another one. You're looking at this team and going, they have to make a move. We kind of have them in a good position here where we're not going to have to give up a ton of assets to get a wide receiver off their roster, because they're going to be cutting one. So I think this is going to be a very fluid situation as camp goes on and as cutdowns start to happen. I'm looking for one of these guys to get moved, unless somebody gets injured. Obviously all that could change if a couple guys go down and they stash guys on IR. But if everyone stays healthy, one of these guys, I have a feeling one of these guys is going to get moved.
Yeah, there's three players I'm excited about in this offense from a fantasy football perspective in 2025. And it's Jordan Love, who's only a year removed from being a top 5 fantasy football quarterback on a points per game basis last year, even though he was hurt, right? Was QB 13. Even though he was hurt. And so super excited about him still as a super flex option. I think he's a good value. We kind of talked about him a minute ago. Josh Jacobs, obviously, year in, year out producing. Outside of that last year, the Raiders is a running back 1. MarShawn Lloyd is hurt once again. So there's definitely a clear path for Josh Jacobs to be that elite running back 1 again. Love to see his increase in the passing game. Love to see last year got his very first receiving touchdown forever in the history of him playing in the NFL. And then the other guy I'm excited about is Tucker Kraft for the Packers. This is a name that the team's brought up. We know that Matt LaFleur's offense and Jordan Love to spread the football around against these receivers. Tons of options. Makes sense, right? Go where there's somebody isn't. But Tucker Kraft really took a big step forward last year, finished the top 8 fantasy football tight end in this offense. He was kind of the talk of OTAs already in training camp. He's been still kind of getting some looks. And last year, let's listen, when it came to yards after contact and broken tackles, Tucker Kraft was elite. So it makes sense to get the ball in this guy's hands as well. I think Jayden Reed offers a lot of upside because if they can manufacture touches for him too, kind of like we were talking about Debo or even like DJ Moore. I think Tucker Kraft is one guy that I'm excited about from a dynasty standpoint. Outside of Josh Jacobs, who's an older running back, which we all know how we treat those guys, and Jordan Love. I'm excited about Jayden Reed, but there's nobody else I'm excited about. Even Matthew Golden, they spent a first-round pick on him. I don't know how he's going to utilize this offense. We know they spread the ball around. I don't know how soon we're going to see fantasy football relevance. And if it is, does he float around like that Jameson Williams role going back to the Lions where he's just wide receiver 28, 29? Is that where Matthew Golden's going to live? Solid a couple weeks here and there. Those guys are replaceable, right? I'm looking for guys who are going to make a difference in a championship caliber. And right now, the only guys I can really see are Love, Kraft, and Jacobs.
And Rich, this was always kind of the slightly puzzling part of this offense to me. Last year, one of the issues for Jayden Reed was in 12 personnel, he was often getting pulled off the field because he wasn't good in run blocking. We watched Golden's tape. He's not a player that thrives in blocking downfield either. So that's going to be the confusing part is when they're looking to run the football or at least have an offense on the field, 12 personnel, are they going to really be able to leave him on the field in those types of situations? Or they're going to be pulling him a lot when it's non-obvious passing down? So that's a big question mark for me moving forward. Maybe he's improved in that, but rookies usually tend to be bad in that period, but he was one that didn't thrive there in college either.
Yeah, that's true. And a guy like, they drafted Savion Williams, who is a complete monster at like 6'3", 225 pounds, who also does a lot of that gadgety stuff and can be given the ball kind of all over the place. So who knows if we see him kind of dipping into some of those snaps
good
anyway.
Draft capital too. 3rd round.
Yeah, he ended up being a 3rd round.
3rd round pick was a lot higher than I probably would have felt comfortable taking a guy like that. He's just raw. I mean, he's got a ton of upside, but a raw talent for sure. And a guy like Williams.
Bigger Christian Watson.
What'd you say? He's a bigger Christian Watson?
He's a bigger Christian Watson, yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know that he even catches the ball as well as Christian Watson. That's the problem.
Well, yeah.
He's LaVisca to me. But
yeah.
We'll see.
Yep.
Yeah, there
absolutely.
you go. That's a good comment.
All right, so I don't know. Is there anything else, any other meat on the bone here? Like a Malik Willis, all of a sudden kind of looks like an okay quarterback, right, in this system. Is there any thought of him kind of long-term for you guys? He's in the last year of his deal. From a super flex standpoint, if he comes out and looks okay, if he gets some spot duty here, is he someone you guys are interested in at all? I see shaking heads.
Good offense, good system. Guys like that, definitely when you're not prepared for them, like relief work, they're going to look good, right? They're going to have their opportunity. And it's such a long shot, for a guy to be a free agent, let those guys walk, sign somewhere. And that people like to sell that to the fan base. Like those teams are drafting quarterbacks. They're not signing Malik Willis to come in and get the W. Like we're not excited about Trey Lance. We're not excited about any of these guys that go anywhere. So, a backup that you could be excited with if Jordan Love goes down, but you can say that about most quarterbacks that go down.
Hey guys, we are super excited to announce that we have a show that we've been doing for a few months now called Roster Rescue. It's every Monday at noon, and sometimes we even do extra shows if we have a lot of roster rescues to do. But basically what it is, it's an opportunity for us to take a look at your guys' teams, your specific team, and say, hey, I think you should go into rebuild. Hey, I think you are a contending team. Hey, trade for this guy. Hey, maybe look to make this move. We get eyes and hands on your specific team. So if you want to do that, go ahead and head to the website, go under the store tab and go down to Roster Rescue. Go there, use promo code RESCUE10 and you'll get 10% off. So head there today. It's a great opportunity for us to come rescue your rosters.
All right. So let's move on then to our last team here, the Minnesota Vikings. At quarterback, Rich's man crush, JJ McCarthy, and then they got Sam Howell and Brett Ripien. At running back, they got Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, Ty Chandler. At the tight end position, they have TJ Hawkinson, Josh Oliver, and Gavin Bartholomew. Sorry. At the wide receiver position, obviously Justin Jefferson up at the top, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, Tim Jones, Ty Felton, sorry, and then Rondell Moore. Who knew he was still around?
Man.
But Rondell Moore's on this roster.
Irrelevant.
Poor guy.
Totally irrelevant indeed. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think the biggest question mark here, obviously JJ McCarthy, we've talked about him in depth on this episode, why I'm such a believer. I love Kevin O'Connell, what he did with Mullins, what he did with Kirk, what he did with Sam. Like, I trust the system. I trust the weapons around him. I think we've established Jordan Addison's a very good value at they give you wide receiver 2 numbers that you're getting for wide receiver 3 pricing. But he offers that kind of upside, very savvy route runner.
He is going to miss some time at the beginning of the year. He's going to miss the first 2 games.
It sounds like they're bracing for 3 games. We obviously haven't heard the news yet on Jordan Addison, but it sounds like 3.
Yeah, which could be negotiated down to 2. We'll see how it works out. But he's only 22 years old, I think, right now. Jordan Addison, he's still super young.
23.
23
yep. Already. Oh yeah, this is okay. Yeah, it makes way more sense. Justin Jefferson, great. Hawkinson, right where he needs to be slotted in. I think it comes down to this then, is a running back situation. It's somewhat murky. You got Aaron Jones, who looked damn good in this offense last year. But then they go out and they trade for Jordan Mason and they extend him. And we saw in Christian McCaffrey's absence, right? Like Jordan Mason is a very solid ball mover, like really good yards after contact, really good in broken tackles per attempt. Even when, because before he came back, his numbers were when McCaffrey was down. And again, this is part of the system too. So I'm not trying to get like over, I'm not trying to get ahead of my skis here, but like he was running back 9 overall. He averaged 5.21 yards per carry in that offense. And now, listen, we've seen guys like, Elijah Mitchell come in and look just as good. We've seen many running backs come into this system and be very high quality running back assets. But the fact that they traded for him and extended him, already knew saying this could be a 50-50 split. Is Mason the kind of guy you kind of invest in and hoping that, he finds that path to kind of give that Alexander Madison treatment, but can be a better running back and be the starter for 2025, but you're paying backup duties for 2026, but paying backup duties for 2025?
He's definitely one of the most interesting running backs, because you look at Aaron Jones, he actually had a career high in touches last season overall. So usually that's not good news for somebody that's reaching 30 years old at the running back spot. Like, you're not looking for that. And so I think they really do want somebody to share these running back duties and share these touches with. And I think Heat Profiles is a really good one to do it with. The thing that gives me even a little bit more confidence is we've been talking about how good this running back class was, and they just kind of said, screw it. We'll trade a draft pick and then sign this guy to an extension. So that was kind of their way of just kind of insulating their risk and just saying, we know that this guy could run our scheme and do what we need him to do. So I do think he's going to be a viable asset for fantasy. I'm not putting anything crazy. I have Aaron Jones because he's going to be specifically, I think, a little more used in the receiving game. I have him at running back 26 on the season. And then I have Jordan Mason at running back 36. So I do think both are going to be useful. I think both could be flex option type players. If one were to go down, though, the other one is going to definitely rise a lot in value.
And I'm with you there. I think, obviously Aaron Jones, he's been in the 2, 4, 6. He's been in the league 8 years. He's had 2 full seasons where he didn't miss any time. So I would expect him to at least get nicked at some point in this season. Obviously just given the workload last year, they're going to want to get Jordan Mason involved, like you said, Rich. So I do think this is one of these guys that could become a sneaky value in Dynasty this year. And if Aaron Jones misses an extended period of time, I think they saw enough in San Francisco that they're like, yeah, this works in our system as well. We got a very similar run system, so we know he can do it. And from a fantasy standpoint, I think we all know that he can perform as well. So I think he's a great value wherever he's going right now. Where do we have him at ADP, Jared?
RB 42.
Yeah, so that's
Jordan
fantastic.
Mason's RB 42. Aaron Jones RB 35.
Okay.
So if you feel like you believe in Mason, like there's a chance where we just talk about all these other running backs are getting like some talk, which they all do this time of the year, and almost none of them come to fruition, right? Like Bucky Irvin did, but like for the most part, none of these guys come to fruition. You might be able to flip one of those guys as a more clear path to carries. Like Jordan Mason's got a much clearer path, like instead of even like a guy like Kyle Monangai to the Swift owner. Like they'll have one of these guys that can kind of pivot to their own backup. Like Mason's going to give you a better opportunity probably to score in 2025 if you're looking for running back help. Going back to Justin Jefferson, I will say this before we finish. I'm in that new best ball startup nerds that started yesterday, and I had picked 111. I ended up getting this is 2 points per tight end reception. So Trey McBride and Brock Bowers both went top 7. I ended up getting Justin Jefferson at the 2-2 because Drake London, Malik Neighbors, and Jamar Chase went ahead of him. Again, this is league specific. People probably just wanted that. But like if people start to pivot, like if Justin Jefferson all of a sudden, because if Jamar has pushed him down to that second tier, where he's not in a tier by himself, like if you are all in on JJ, then this might be a good opportunity to go out and get him.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The wide receiver position has a ton of young talent right now, but let's not forget the guys that have still been doing it for a while and still have plenty of years to still do it.
Right.
Yeah, I think the fact that it has been watered down does give you more opportunity. Like I just do same league. Like I had pick 3-2 because it was third round reversal. I took Jahmyr Gibbs at 111, Justin Jefferson at 2-2. When it came back to me, I was like really up in the air because Nico was on the board, Marv was on the board, and Ladd was on the board. And I obviously love Marv and Ladd. Nico worries about the hamstring a little bit. I already have a 26-year-old receiver, so I took Marv on the upside. And then 2 picks later, somebody's like, hey, I'm willing to move back here. And I gave up 4-11 to move up to 3-4. And I gave him my first next year, which I don't care about in the startup. And I got Ladd McConkey to go with him. So I'm pretty.
That's a sexy receiving core.
Good job, Rich.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. So, yeah, Justin Jefferson, again, you weren't wide receiver 1 overall last year. There's some kind of small dip where I get it. People want to get younger. This is kind of time to do it, right? We talk about all the time, like, hey, if you could tear down from Justin Jefferson to Drake London plus to Malik Neighbors plus, there's an opportunity there. And that plus is like, Garrett, you talked about this earlier, like an Mario and Hampton, right? Like, hey, can I get McConkey and Hampton for like JJ? Like that's an opportunity I'm trying to present, like better my team. So I think with the influx of young, that's a good point, Garrett, the influx of such young talent at receiver. And it's so robust right now where like the difference between the rank set and the tiers is so slim, that probably is a savvy move. If you could potentially move off a guy like Chase or Justin Jefferson for a 2-for-1 kind of deal. Depending on your team structure, because again, we're trying to build championship caliber starting lineups is what we're trying to do. So not a bad idea.
All right. I think that wraps everything up. Right?
Yeah. I just wanted one last note. Sam Howell is the backup here. We've seen in the past kind of backups go to this team and all of a sudden they kind of blossom. So I just wanted to put that note out there. Like, hey, just pay attention to this guy. He might be someone that if you can get him as a throw in a super flex league, he might be somebody that kind of blossoms here in this system. Kevin O'Connell is the new QB whisperer out there. So I just wanted to give him the heads up and make sure everyone remembered his name.
Look, JJ McCarthy is going to be a wide receiver 1, so no need to fret, people. Quarterback 1, sorry.
Throwing and catching.
Potentially, who knows? This offense, let's get freaky.
Well, all right.
I think that wraps things up, right?
All right, yeah, we're back tomorrow with more NFC South. Dirty Birds.
Adios.